Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. There is nothing permanent in this physical world except change. Why do we resist it then? Years ago, I got my PhD from EPFL, and I worked as an executive in a corporate environment. Everything looked great outside, but I didn't feel good inside. I had what I longed for, yet it didn't make me happy anymore. I knew, and I was aware, that I needed a change, but I was resisting. I decided to take a vacation and go to an island. One late afternoon, I was sitting by the Atlantic Ocean and watching the sunset. Imagine a mountain range on my left and a turquoise blue ocean on my right. Waves were crashing, the air had the fresh smell of the ocean, and the sun was sitting on the ocean on the horizon. And I was enjoying the warmth of sun on my head and on my shoulder. I observed a bird in the sky, and as I felt a light ocean breeze on my face, I saw the bird flew upward, and as the breeze decreased, the bird gently got back down to the same level it was flying before. I asked myself, if this bird can adapt and smoothly change its path, then how can I bring more harmony in my life? How can I relearn accepting and embracing change? Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you have felt resistance when the change was needed? It's a bit dark, but I can see some hands there. All right, I'm not the only one in this room. Research shows 70% of all change initiatives in organizations fail. This is 2 out of 3. That's not because of technology. That's not because of system. That's because of us, people. That's because we stayed rational in leading and driving change, and we ignored emotions. Indeed, we failed to connect and bond. For over 10 years, I coached and consulted executives and trained organizational leaders, ranging from Fortune 500 to entrepreneurial firms. What I dominantly and frequently observed is that most of us resist change, and we cannot accept and embrace it easily. Our research in change management has a lot to offer and say about the best way to approach organizational change and transformation. But when it comes to leading oneself and driving change, many of us struggle. I would like to share with you 3 lessons that I've learned about leading change consciously. The first lesson that I learned is we cannot stop the wind of change, but we can learn how to sail. In our daily lives, we use terms like uncertainty, mess, or discomfort to label change. Ancient cultures called it impermanence and lived this fact masterfully. A shorter story may better describe this concept. There was a very powerful Persian king who once called his advisors or wise men together and asked them for one quote that would be accurate at all time and in all situations. Challenging. The wise men got together, consulted with each other for months, and finally came up with an answer which they inscribed in a ring for the king. The answer was, or the quote was, "This too shall pass." The ring was a reminder for the king to stay present, because this moment won't last. if we pay attention, we see changes happening all the time around us in our physical world. We grow older, we get wrinkles, and some like me lose hair. And we change and move to different cities and countries, and we change our jobs. Change is unavoidable. And at this digital era, it happens at an even faster pace. What is surprising is how obvious the nature of change is, and yet we are still surprised by change. It seems we count on things as staying in a very permanent way, or if things gonna change, it should be according to our will. I personally believe we are pre-programmed by our cultures. We are influenced by our education. And we have the illusion that things are stable and permanent. They are not. Being able to expand our perception and direct our attention to the nature of change and practice this understanding leads us to value more and appreciate more this very precious moment. In other words, there is always a wind of change. We should learn how to sail. The second lesson that I learned is, in any given situation, we have a choice. A choice to make friends with change. A choice to accept and embrace change. You see, change is a shift from the current situation to a pleasant situation such as promotion, or an unpleasant situation such as demotion, breakup, or layoff. Generally, we tend to not accept unpleasant situations. And when we experience them, quite often our mental, emotional patterns of resistance become activated. You might be asking, how? At a mental level, we're just observing, we see it, we interpret it, and then we start judging. We start complaining and building our own narrative of what we have seen. Then we repeat our narrative out of what just happened. We repeat it over and over, and we believe it. Thoughts react in our body as emotions. And in case of unpleasant changes, we experience tension, frustration, you name it, anger, and grief for what we think we have lost. Whatever we do produces results. Pleasant or unpleasant, yeah, it's our perception. If we live long enough, we experience there is always a wind of change. Things always go wrong in the process. There is always a loss in this physical world. Sounds sad. But we have a choice. We have a choice to make friends with change. We have a choice to take action, not a reaction, but action to engage and make things better, or leave the situation. If nothing else externally is possible, then accept and embrace change. Accepting and embracing change creates a space within, which enables us to have better responses when external situations change. As in martial art, don't resist the opponent's force. Yield to overcome. I know, accepting and embracing change may hurt. That's why we resist change. This brings me to the third lesson that I learned. If we see the full process, it's not the change really we resist, but rather it's the pain of the change. The pain that is most often caused by ourselves, by our mental, emotional patterns of resistance, by how we see, perceive, and interpret the daily events of our lives. This is where most of us get stuck and struggle to lead ourselves and drive change. So next time, if a change or an unpleasant situation happens, be compassionate with yourself. Don't be too harsh. It's okay to be down. It's okay to be at the foot of the valley. The roads to peaks pass through valleys. If you're leading others and driving change, imagine merger and acquisition, organizational restructuring, or leading digital transformation, you name it, changes life. First and foremost, define what stays the same and what's going to change. And be honest and clearly communicate both benefits and losses of this change. Identify those in your organization who are going through the pain of the change. Acknowledge their negative emotions. Have empathy with them. And support them in their down moments. Let them grieve for what they think they've lost. This grief might be, or the loss might be for a reputation, for a routine of job, for their job, for the job of their colleagues, for the organization, for a hope, for anything. They have the right to grieve for what they think they have lost. You might be thinking that, oh boy, I'm just so busy with the leading change and I don't have time to go that far. Or why should I have empathy and compassion with others? A simple answer is because we are all human. And we are dealing with each other. Sure, we cannot make change comfortable for everybody, but we can be compassionate enough to listen, not to answer, but listen and minimize the discomfort, to identify and find the source of resistance, and to stay connected and keep the bond. To wrap it up, there is always a wind of change. We should learn how to sail. In any given situation, we have a choice to make friends with change. And it's not the change that we really resist, but rather it's the pain of the change. I believe we are all leaders, and we are masters of our own fate. Let's lead ourselves and drive change consciously. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.